Imagine for a moment that everything you thought you knew about the teachings of Jesus has been carefully filtered, censored, and silenced for centuries. Consider the possibility that his deepest message, the one that liberates and transforms human consciousness, was deliberately hidden not by external enemies, but by those who swore to preserve his word. What if Jesus' most powerful teachings never made it into the pages of the New Testament? And what if the true purpose of his coming was much deeper than redemption, through sacrifice? Today we will unearth what many consider the most transformative wisdom ever shared by a human being, and most impactful of all. The final revelation in this video is undoubtedly the most powerful of all. Prepare for a soul-shaking journey. Before continuing, be sure to subscribe to the channel, like, comment, and share this video with those who seek truth beyond dogma. Today you will discover revelations that could completely transform your perception of the universe. For centuries, the words of Jesus have been repeated, interpreted and ritualized, reflecting on life and oneself. But in the sands of time, a part of his message was carefully excluded. We are not talking about simple omitted verses, but about a completely different vision of the human soul, the purpose of existence, and the path to the divine. This is the wisdom that survived in marginalized texts, such as the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Philip, and other manuscripts found in Nag Hammadi in 1945. These texts, considered apocryphal by religious institutions, reveal an image of Jesus that differs drastically from the traditional Savior. Here Jesus does not appear as the necessary intermediary between God and man, but as a teacher of conscience, someone who points the way to inner awakening, to the divinity that already dwells within each of us. And this changes everything. Jesus did not come to found a religion. He came to teach a path of self-discovery, a direct and personal spiritual path. His words, when read deeply, do not point to external worship, but to the recognition of the inner kingdom. The kingdom of heaven was not a place one goes to after death. It was and is a state of consciousness, a dimension accessed through the awakening of the soul. Whoever knows themselves will find everything, he said in these non-canonical Gospels, a profoundly Gnostic affirmation that invites us to look inward, to discover that within the human being resides everything. The divine spark, lost knowledge, union with the absolute. This approach surprisingly coincides with esoteric teachings from other cultures. In Hermeticism, for example, it is said that what is above is like what is below, and that the entire universe can be known if one knows oneself. The words of Jesus resonate on this same frequency. He taught that the truth is not outside, but within the enlightened heart. But why were these teachings suppressed? What made them so dangerous? Because a human being who recognizes themselves as a bearer of the divine, he is a free being. He needs no intermediaries, no imposed rituals, no immutable dogmas. He does not kneel before systems because he has remembered his true nature. This is the seed of freedom that Jesus planted, and this is the reason why his message was distorted by power, structures that sought to control, not liberate. Many scholars, such as Elaine Pagels, a professor at Princeton University and author of the Gnostic Gospels, have dedicated their lives to investigating these forgotten texts. She explains that in these scriptures, Jesus appears as a mystical guide whose main interest was awakening the human soul, not imposing an external morality. His highest teaching was this: you are the light of the world. Think about it. If that mystical Jesus, that master of profound wisdom, was speaking to you directly today, not from an altar, but from the depths of your being, would you hear him? That voice still lives. It resonates in dreams, intuitions, moments of absolute silence. It is in the instance when everything seems to make sense, even if only for a second. It is the voice that reminds you that you are more than flesh, more than history, more than a name, that you are eternal and that you were created not to obey, but to remember. But there is more, much more in this series of hidden teachings. There are levels of depth that challenge even our most deeply held ideas about the soul, life after death, and the direct connection with the divine. Jesus did not speak in parables to confuse, but to veil profound truths accessible only to those with ears to hear and eyes to see. For example, in the Gospel of Thomas, this powerful statement is attributed to him: "If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring it forth, what you do not bring forth will destroy you." This phrase is not only profoundly introspective, but also points to a transformative power that lies dormant within each of us. Are you willing to look inward and discover what has always been there? What we are exploring here is not just ancient history. It is a map to the divine, an urgent call in times when souls, they feel lost, searching for meaning in an increasingly chaotic world. Jesus left that map, and those who have the courage to follow it will find more than answers. They will find the truth. In the next part, we will reveal the most important keys to this inner path taught by Jesus, those that connect us directly to our divine origin and explain why humanity forgot its true essence. Are you ready to take the next step on this journey of spiritual revelation? Jesus didn't come simply to preach love, humility, and charity. Although these values were part of his message, he came to reveal a deeper secret, that within each human being resides a spark of the divine, a fragment of the whole, and that only through inner awakening can that spark reunite with its origin. This is the true meaning of the phrase, "I and the Father are one." It was not a declaration of exclusivity, but an invitation, a revelation of what we also are. In the canonical texts, this truth was diluted or presented in a distorted way, as a privilege reserved only for Jesus. But in the Gnostic Gospels, he makes it clear that we are all children of the same source. In the Gospel of Philip, for example, it says that those who say they will die first and then be resurrected are mistaken. If they do not receive the resurrection while they live, when they die they will receive nothing. This statement completely changes our understanding of life and death. It speaks to us of a resurrection in life, of an awakening here and now. What does this mean? Spiritual enlightenment. It is not a promise for after death, but a transformation that can and should occur while we walk in this world. Jesus taught that the sleeping soul must be awakened, that our task in this life is not simply to fulfill commandments, but to remember who we are at our deepest core. Forgetting our true nature is the root of human suffering, and remembering the anaphora is the key to our freedom. This is where the most hidden and symbolic teachings of Jesus come in. He spoke of the kingdom of heaven, like a treasure hidden in a field, like a pearl of great value for which one must sell everything one owns. This does not refer to external things, but to the soul, to that state of pure consciousness that has been forgotten by humanity, a state that can only be rediscovered through self-knowledge. These teachings were deeply disturbing to the religious structures of their time because they took power out of the hands of intermediaries and returned it to the individual. Therefore, they were suppressed. Agnostic wisdom does not propose an institutionalized religion, but a direct experience with the divine. And that is what Jesus proposed, an experience of personal connection with God, without the need for temples, rituals, or hierarchies. It is fascinating how these teachings resonate in other spiritual traditions. In Buddhism, Buddha taught that suffering comes from ignorance of our true nature. In Hinduism, it is said that the individual soul, the Atman, is identical to Brahman, the universal soul. And in the Egyptian mysteries, divinity was found in the innermost being of the human being, not in external idols. Jesus, as a teacher of universal wisdom, spoke from the very essence. But there is something more, something rarely mentioned, yet with the power to change everything. In these Gospels, Jesus taught about the multidimensionality of the soul, about how it descends to the material world, forgetting its origin, and how it must travel a path back, ascending through the levels of knowledge and light. According to this vision, the soul is not born pure or fallen, but unconsciously, Its journey consists of remembering, of gradually awakening through trials, suffering, and revelations, until it once again achieves unity with the all. This journey of the soul is reflected in parables such as that of the prodigal son, the son who leaves his father's house, a symbol of the soul that separates from the source and, after experiencing the emptiness of the world, returns repentant and is received with absolute love. This parable is not moralistic. It is a spiritual map. It describes your story, our story, because each of us is that forgotten son. Deep in their hearts, they long to return home. Jesus' promise is not salvation through obedience, but enlightenment through understanding. That's why he said, "The truth will set you free, not fear, not submission, not penance, but the truth, a truth that is not imposed, but revealed like a dawn that dispels the inner darkness." And it is here that one of the most revolutionary teachings of all emerges. Jesus not only came to reveal the way, but to embody that way in the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, another text hidden for centuries. Jesus is presented to us as the one who guides the soul beyond the archons, the forces that try to keep it imprisoned in ignorance. The tool for liberation is not blind faith, but profound self-knowledge. Can you imagine the power of these teachings if they had been known for centuries? How many lives would have changed? How many wars, divisions, and unnecessary blame could have been avoided if Jesus' central message had been awakening and not obedience? Jesus did not speak to create fear, but to ignite the light. His true teachings do not point to punishment, but to conscience. Not to dogma, but to absolute love. He spoke of a God who does not need to be feared, but remembered. A God who is not outside, but in the innermost being. And if you are feeling that there is something inside you that resonates with these words, it is not by chance. It is your soul remembering. It is your divine spark responding to the call. In the next part, we will explore the secret practices that, according to these texts, Jesus transmitted to his closest disciples. Practices that lead to inner awakening, and that were silenced because they contained immense transformative power. You will see how these teachings are not just theory, but concrete tools for the enlightenment of the soul. And the final revelation will be the most impactful of all. Many think that the teachings of Jesus were simply words, but according to apocryphal texts and esoteric traditions, he did not only speak, he taught practices, transmitting concrete methods of inner connection, rituals of the soul. These exercises in introspection and deep contemplation, which his closest disciples jealously guarded, were not external liturgies, but spiritual technologies to access the kingdom of heaven within oneself. In the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus says, "If those who guide you tell you the kingdom is in heaven, then the birds of the air will precede you. If they tell you it is in the sea, then the fish will precede you. But the kingdom is within you and outside of you. When you know yourselves, then you will be known and you will understand that you are children of the living God." This teaching is a key, an invitation to an inner experience and not to an external belief. But how do you access that inner realm? How does that awakening occur? One of Jesus's most veiled teachings has to do with silence. Silence, not only as the absence of words, but as a state of direct connection with the source. He frequently withdrew to the desert, to the mountain, to the garden, to enter into communion with the Father. In those spaces of profound solitude, it is said that Jesus taught his disciples how to quiet the mind, how to descend into the heart, and how to listen to the inner voice, that voice that does not shout but knows all the truth. This type of teaching coincides with what would later be known as the prayer of the heart, a practice of inner repetition that leads the mind to rest in the spirit. It is a contemplative technique transmitted in Eastern Christian traditions, but which, according to many scholars, has its roots in the methods that Jesus himself shared with his closest followers. Mary Magdalene, according to the gospel that bears her name, was one of Jesus' closest disciples, and according to this text, it was to her that he revealed the highest teachings. In this gospel, Jesus instructs about the ascent of the soul through spheres called the powers. which symbolize the levels of consciousness, or the veils of illusion that the soul must traverse to return to its origin. And in that journey lies profound knowledge, gnosis. What liberates the soul, you realize the scope of this. Jesus did not come to found a structure, but to break down the walls of separation between the human and the divine. He was a revealer, a master of mysteries, a bearer of primordial light, and those who followed him with true devotion were not blind worshippers but conscious seekers who understood that his word was a code, a door, a vibration that would reveal hidden realities. These hidden practices also included the use of breath in some texts. It describes how Jesus breathed on his disciples, saying, "I received from the Holy Spirit." This breath was not symbolic. It was the transmission of real energy, an initiatory act, an activation of the soul. In esoteric traditions, it is understood that breath carries spirit and that the breath is controlling vital energy. Jesus taught conscious breathing, raising internal energy, and awakening dormant centers within the body and soul. He also spoke of the single eye. If your eye is one, your whole body will be filled with light. This enigmatic phrase has been interpreted by many as a reference to the third eye, the center of spiritual vision which, when opened, allows one to perceive reality beyond the physical senses. It wasn't poetry, it was instruction. Jesus taught how to activate this center through meditation, fasting, silence, and mindfulness. And why were these teachings hidden? Because they contain the power to radically transform human beings. Because whoever accesses these truths ceases to be manipulable. Whoever awakens their inner vision, he no longer needs others to tell him how to live, what to believe or whom to fear, and that freedom is deeply uncomfortable for any system that relies on blind obedience. Scholars like Janet Leloup, a French philosopher and theologian, have dedicated years to translating and commenting on these hidden gospels. He affirms that the true message of Jesus is one of empowerment, of reintegrating the soul with its origin, that it is not about religious morality, but about an alchemy of the spirit. Jesus was an alchemist of the soul, a healer of the being, a messenger from higher dimensions, and you are willing to experience that transformation. Imagine what would happen if every human being remembered that they carry within themselves the kingdom of God, that they don't need to ask permission to love, to heal, to create, to rise up, that they were created in the image of the divine, not to live on their knees, but to walk with dignity, with awareness and with light. In the next part, we will reach the most powerful revelation of all, the true nature of the inner Christ. We will discover what it truly means to be a Christ, living, why Jesus said we would do even greater works than his, and how this knowledge can forever change our lives, our decisions, and our destiny. Prepare yourself. The most sacred is about to be revealed. Now the time has come to unveil the hidden heart of this entire message, the most sacred revelation that Jesus came to share, but which was deliberately silenced for centuries, a truth so powerful that if it is truly understood and lived, it can transform humanity from its very foundations. And that truth is this: Christ is not a person. He is a state of consciousness. Jesus did not come into the world to be worshipped like an idol. He came to show us what it means to live from the inner Christ, from that divine consciousness that is planted in the soul of every human being. He said, "You are the light of the world, and the things I do you will do, and even greater things." Why are these words not repeated as often as others? Because they invite us to look inward, not outward. Because they demand spiritual responsibility, not submission. Christ is the divine flame that dwells at the center of being. It is the awakening of consciousness to its true origin beyond the body, beyond personal history. It is the recognition that you and the Father are one, not separate from the source, of which you have always been a part. Jesus embodied this Christian consciousness and dedicated his life to showing the world that we can all do the same. Gnostic texts constantly speak of the knowledge of the heart, a direct, non-intellectual understanding. that which ignites from within and reveals unity with the eternal. This is gnosis. And Jesus was undoubtedly a Gnostic master, although many still deny it. He did not ask for blind faith. He asked for transformation. He did not demand empty rituals. He asked for presence. Truth and love lived in the gospel of truth. One of the manuscripts found in Nag Hammadi says that Christ came to recover what had been forgotten. Not to punish, not to condemn, but to remind, because the fall of humankind was not due to moral sin, but to the forgetting of its divine nature. That's why his message wasn't one of guilt, but of remembrance. Awakening means remembering who you are, where you come from, and what potential lives within you. And that remembrance has consequences. When the soul awakens to its Christian nature, everything changes. It no longer lives from fear, but from trust. It no longer seeks the world's approval, because it has found the truth within itself. It no longer struggles to prove its worth, because it knows it is a living expression of the divine. That is the transformation Jesus came to bring about. Imagine a world where millions of people, they are recognized as bearers of Christian consciousness, where there are no temples of stone, because every human heart becomes a living temple where hierarchies are not needed, because each one hears the voice of God within themselves. That is the kingdom of heaven, not a place in the heights, but a spiritual reality that begins when the soul remembers the true message of Jesus. It is revolutionary, not because it seeks to overthrow governments or political systems, but because it dismantles the inner walls that separate us from the eternal. He came to free humanity from the invisible chains of ignorance, to show that love is not a weak emotion, but the most powerful force in the universe. That forgiveness is not submission, but wisdom. That compassion is not weakness, but the language of the enlightened. And now you know you can no longer ignore this call. Everything you have heard in this video is not external information. It is the memory of the soul, an ancient echo that vibrates within you because you too have heard this truth before. Perhaps in dreams, perhaps in silences, perhaps in moments when your soul wept for memories. And now the time has come to respond. This knowledge is not for admiration, it is for living. How to live the inner Christ, through conscious silence, through the observation of the ego and the recognition of the soul, through the selfless service of love that demands nothing in return, through deep meditation, the cultivation of compassion, the awakening of intuition. Every conscious action is a step towards the kingdom. Every enlightened thought a ray of that inner sun. Jesus lives on, not in paintings, not in statues, but in every heart willing to awaken, in every gaze that sees beyond appearances, in every soul that burns for truth. He hasn't left, he's here. He has always been waiting for us to recognize him, not as an external figure, but as an inner fire. And you will answer that call today. You have heard a truth that has been hidden for centuries. You have crossed the veil. You have touched with your mind and heart a knowledge that transforms. But this journey has only just begun, because knowing isn't enough. You must live it. You must ignite that spark. You must allow Christ to awaken within you. And when he does, there will be no turning back. You will walk with a different gaze. You will speak with a different voice. You will love with a different strength. And where there was once shadow, you will see light. The world doesn't need more religions. It needs awakened beings, living souls, human beings who live from Christian consciousness, like beacons in the darkness, like portals to eternity. And you can be one of them. You already are, if this message has touched your soul. Subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share this video with those who feel the calling. Tell us in the comments which teaching of Jesus resonated with you most today. Do you feel you've remembered something that was always inside you? Because this is not the end, it's the beginning of your true awakening. Thank you for watching.